All right, let me welcome on board Arvind Singhal and from Technopak and Milind Sarwate from Increate Value Advisors joining us on the show this morning on some of those trends that we're witnessing across consumption, the rural segment and urban growth at this point of time. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. Arvind, let me kick off with you then. Now with the second wave well underway, very widespread this time, how are the implications and what's been different vis-a-vis the first wave? What are we seeing in terms of consumption patterns this time around?
So this time, the implications for consumptions are very, very different to what it was in, let's say, June of last year. I think this second wave has hit a lot of people in a very short span of time. There have been a lot of losses of life, whether directly or indirectly in your extended circle of friends. This time, there's also not only just a loss of income, but a significant amount of reduction from savings for many people, especially who had to face the medical expenditure on account of COVID. And lastly, I think the government has been caught also completely flat-footed in the last couple of months' time. The sheer quantum of energy and effort which have been put to now control this pandemic, the second wave, what it means is that the government's own expenditure in other areas are also taking a backseat. So the sum total of all of this is not looking very good as far as revival of private consumption is concerned, at least for the next 6 months.
Okay. All right, so at least 6 months. Milind, what's your view? And last year we also saw pantry loading and some very identifiable trends in that sense. This time around, do you feel it's been harder hit?
Firstly, good morning and thanks for having me on the show. As Arvind rightly pointed out, the second wave has been very different from the first wave. I would just add a couple of points to what Arvind mentioned. I feel that this wave has brought in a much wider and larger fear of death. We have seen people die and for the large part of India's consuming class, the famous middle class, there are more PLUs, people like us who have suffered and who have died. So I think the ambience is one of despair at one level. And therefore, this wave has damaged a lot of things. It has damaged the desire to buy, it has damaged the affordability, and it has also damaged the availability of products. So I would say that we are in that backdrop. And coming to the more specific question of pantry loading that you mentioned, I feel that the realization that waves will keep coming have also resulted in some kind of a behavior that maybe we need not stock forever, because no matter what we do, the next wave might come. Having said that, yes, there is some kind of pantry loading happening. I think at the fringes, affordability is coming into play, and availability also has been an issue, because lockdowns this time have been more stringent, so to say, and more followed rigorously also. Although they may not be called lockdowns, I have seen cities getting locked down. Even e-commerce has seen a muted availability. So all in all, I feel pantry loading not as strongly as in the first wave. Also, the first wave had some element of thrill about it, and people were wanting to, have that experience once and get done with it. That once has not happened, it has come again, and it might come again. I think that's not a good feeling.
Right. Okay. Arvind, given how the first wave and the second wave of the pandemic in that sense are diametrically, different and divergent, given that in the second wave one has seen the rural end of the country as well getting impacted, and that effect continues to play it out, wanted to understand whether there are any trends that one can foresee on how the recovery is bound to be. Because in the first wave, it was rural which was the saving grace and managed to recover faster than urban. Could there be a switch? Can anyone even draw such comparisons right now?
Definitely, I remain a little bit pessimistic this time about either urban India sort of picking up for the loss of business or opportunities in rural, because urban India is as badly hit as the rural India has been. Rural India, as you know, was lesser impacted in the first wave. The second wave has been very democratic, unfortunately, in that sense, even geographically. And to me, the only way out, which I don't see, unfortunately, any signs from the government of India, if we do not jumpstart the economy by actually putting hands in the money of people, the bottom 60% of our population households, they need money in their hands right now. Only then certain amount of our consumer spending will be the catalyst to start. We also need a significant amount of reduction in GST, at least in high ticket items like two-wheelers and four-wheelers and consumer durables. Sadly, we never saw any such sagacity in the first wave. Therefore, I'm not holding my breath that government will come out with something more sensible this time. Sorry to bring up this point as well. The recovery is dependent not so much on controlling the virus. This recovery has now, it needs the fuel of money in the hands of consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. Milind, what's been your observation? Are consumers now shifting to smaller unit packets? Have they been downsizing in terms of brands and preferences?
I agree totally. I think there is a shift driven very largely by affordability, because Arvind also mentioned about savings being drawn upon, and that factor will continue. I feel nobody expected the second wave to be so ferocious, and therefore there may not have been any financial planning for these rainy days, so to say. So I think smaller packs, low unit price packs, down trading from premium brands to lower level brands, that is certainly happening. I also feel that when the mood is not so good, when there is overall despair, I think the whole purpose of branding and the subtle connotations that the brands bring, those disappear and availability becomes the king. And therefore, I feel that the pandemic on a larger plane may end up reducing the role of branding and increasing the role of the value for money brands and the ones that are always available on the shelves. So there is, for the industry as a whole, I think there is a down trading that is happening. And rural areas particularly, because India's branded product industry grows a lot by conversion of unbranded to branded consumers. I feel that conversion is going to suffer. So low unit prices, yes. Down trading, yes. Overall for branding, not very good times.
Sure. Okay. Arvind, now if we take a look at outlook going forward as well, and people have possibly tapped into their savings, they're possibly looking at new ways or new kind of strategies when it comes to their spending plans, for example. Do you think there's going to be a permanent reset in terms of what they prioritize now going forward, whether it be health, immunity, other categories? Do you see that happening?
I don't think there will be anything like a permanent reset. I think we are still behaving based on the circumstances of today. I think that directionally some things could be said, like I said, for example, relying upon digital channels for shopping and a variety of services. Directionally, I think we'll see much more of that. But shopping behavior per se getting a permanent reset, I'm not very sure. As soon as, let's say, by December, hopefully most of India would have been vaccinated and there might not be a third wave of sorts. I think our behavior will be determined, like Milind also said, by the affordability, less by our behavioral changes, which is more subliminal because of the impact of COVID. I also want to make another point that I personally feel that sometime around October, November, the 6 months thereafter, Q3 and Q4, we might see a huge amount of a bounce back in domestic travel, spending on leisure and recreation, because I think the kind of stresses people have got through over the last 15, 16 months, we might see a reversal of what we saw in the first 6, 8 months or 9 months of COVID period. So from a merchandise spending point of view, there will be a double whammy of pressures from consumers saying they may want to go out and meet friends and family who have lost people, or just religious if you are surviving, or various other reasons there. So overall, yes, there will be behavioral changes also because of the fact that you were under a lot of stress. But I think come by June next year, hopefully it might be live as it was in June of, let's say, 2019.
Okay. And Milind, what do you think? Do you feel that perhaps consumption will take a different turn given the bigger impact on income and this time around, and the fact that people are now tapping into their savings?
I agree with Arvind that unlikely that there will be a major shift, because there is a concept of say smashan vairagya. When you go for a cremation, you are totally overcome with grief. But when you come out of that vairagya or that kind of feeling goes away. So I am very sure that when the pandemic starts winding down and you see some new green shoots, so to say, I think people will go back to their old consumption habits. There are some learnings of the pandemic which will stay with us. One of them is the entire role of digital buying. The other could be about some impetus to health and immunity products. I doubt if hygiene products will continue to do well, but health and immunity, yes. Some amount of insurance and risk management at a personal level, those products will come up. There will be some binge buying, like as Arvind mentioned about travel, hospitality, that businesses. But there could also be some, what I would call remorse abstinence, because some people would have gone through a real tough time and those learnings also would stay. So overall, I feel some shifts, no tectonic shifts, some shifts, some new brands might emerge out of in the new categories. But overall, I feel that as a country or as a tribe of people, we may not shift our consuming habits.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing with us the outlook on demand trends and what the prospects are for the FMCG sector as a whole during this time of a second wave, what the consumption trends look like, as well as the outlook on rural versus urban growth.